This is Swarfcast. I'm Noah Graff. I am very honored to be with Brooks Canavesi, founder and chief product officer of Baryons. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Noah. It's an honor to be here.
This is going to be great because today we're talking about AI, and I've tried to limit AI on the show because there's so much AI out there in the podcastosphere. But then I found out what Brooks's company does, and it really resonated with me because if you guys read my blogs or listen to my podcast, you'll know that I'm very into self-development and coaching, and I've adopted AI to do a lot of that. Brooks's company, Baryons, that's the sphere that they're going into, and it seems like I haven't heard as much stuff about that out there, and I'm going to let him give the story of the company real quick, and then we're going to delve in to how it relates to us, machining world, the world in general. And I think it's just going to get really interesting. So tell us about Baryons.
For sure. It's an honor to be here. Like I said, Noah, thanks for inviting me. And when I started working with this team at Baryons, it was actually in 2016, most of us started working together in a services company. So most of us have been technologists for years, working in science and innovation, working on spooky things for the government and DARPA, DOD, all the way through to Mary Kay Cosmetics and AccuWeather and other name brand companies serving millions and billions of constituents, with the technologies that we've helped to maintain and build and set up. So I feel so fortunate to be with the team that I'm with because they're just so innovative. And we've been working in this space for a long time of machine learning and artificial intelligence, but it wasn't until 2022, 2023, at the end of 2022, that we all had this ChatGPT moment. So even us, like our team has been in the trenches of innovation technology, from the internet to mobile application development to IoT devices, now to AI. We've been working in the space for a long time. And our CEO, Mike Caruso, worked on intelligent tutoring systems, as did I, with researchers from places like Texas A&M and Penn State University. And what we had to do with natural language processing and all this technology in the past was super expensive, and it honestly wasn't very good compared to what we just got dropped in our laps, basically, when the transformer models came about and ChatGPT became an API that we could access.
So it was sort of like while the consumers were getting it, you were getting it at the same time. You hadn't really been getting it first.
It reset everyone. We had access to early models, but they weren't very good. It wasn't until they kept training and getting them smarter and smarter. And really, at GPT-3 and 3.5, which is what everyone got, it finally hit a tipping point where everyone was like, whoa, I can see this. I can feel it. It was a visceral situation that people really started to feel. And they kind of say do you feel the AGI or the vibes? That's a West Coast, Silicon Valley type of talk. But when you really start working in this space, you could see these sparks of innovation happening that you were.
What is an AGI?
So AGI is kind of this artificial general intelligence. It's the next step, from just AI. And there's different definitions, and you'll hear this all over the, CNBC and different podcasts and different blogs. But my definition is when you get to artificial general intelligence, it can do most human tasks as good as a human, right? When you get to what's called ASI, that's the next step. That's artificial super intelligence. And you'll hear those words thrown around as well. Super intelligence is not just it can do everything that everyone else can do. What if you took everybody, combined all of their education, brain power, all the humans in the world, it's smarter than all of them combined. That's the highest level of what they call artificial super intelligence, or getting to what they call the singularity.
So Where are we at right now?
It's a great question. It's debated viscerally online, on Twitter, and all over the place. I would say that we are at that inflection point of moving to AGI over the next 2 years. If we're not already there, there's lots of debate that we are really close, if not there. And moving to what's called recursive self improvement, which will, as that happens, will go exponential to ASI over the course of, it's debatable, but people like Ray Kurzweil and some of the brightest minds on the planet say 2030. You'll hear 2033 sometimes, but I'm pretty optimistic it's going to be sooner than later. And that's because we're seeing the cost of intelligence plummet. We're seeing tokens go down as far as the cost, and we're seeing these models get exponentially smarter. Literally, it used to be like every year we get a new model, almost like a new iPhone. And it would be like, sometimes it's a big step up with your iPhone, but sometimes it's like a minor step up, like a little better
Yeah,
camera.
usually with the iPhone, it's pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, really, think about it. Is your iPhone right now, if you compare it to your iPhone in 2016, can you tell me that many different things it can do that one couldn't do?
For me, it's just the camera. It's some of the smarts
Exactly.
and the how it captures film, like photography and video.
But maybe now it's the next thing. Once they get, Siri gets a little smarter, then
We're all, I think, waiting with bated breath on that one to get Siri to be Jarvis. I've even changed my Siri voice to be a more
who's
European
Jarvis?
male.
The butler?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jarvis from Iron Man, right? So
Oh,
we all
okay.
want to be Tony Stark talking to Jarvis, and Jarvis is just like building us our next rendition of like car parts, or fixing my tractor, or telling me how to make the best meal, or speak eloquently in the next meeting, and ordering the best flowers for my wife. And
So, okay. So this goes to what your company is about, which is not just, you know, help me write this great document, help me, with my spreadsheet, even help me come up with my part. You're doing something a little different, that maybe even a little deeper. So, tell me what your company is, what's the mission right now, and and then how does it apply to the people in our industry?
yeah, so our mission has always been around building something with this technology that's needed, that could increase human agency. So one of the things we knew early on as we started to see automation potential, and you see this in manufacturing and even machining, it's how far do we go on the automation scale? There's a lot of things that you can do automated now, and CNC machines are a perfect example of that, and how far they've come over the years, and the different tools that they can pick up and do different types of finishing. That's an automation. Well, you can imagine in white collar job work, back office work, accounting, research, event planning, all of these different functions, operations, HR, things that go on in a major company, how you could start to use AI agents or AI technology to automate some of that work. And we knew that was going to be a huge focus for the biggest frontier models. So your Googles with Gemini models, which are, exquisite. They're great. The OpenAI ChatGPTs that everyone knows, and the codecs and the things that they're creating. The Anthropics with Claude and Claude Code and their new 4.6 models. All of this is where they're focused on general intelligence and becoming something that can do anything for someone. So they want to be generally intelligent. It knows as much about dinosaurs as it does about machining. It knows as much about healthcare as it does about accounting. They want it to be generally smart and able to support multiple business workloads, if you will, or workflows. For us, we wanted to build an application that worked within this AI construct, and we wanted to build a platform, but we didn't want to build something that was a minor improvement or just focused on one narrow task, because we knew if we just focused there, we would get roadmapped. And we've seen since 2023, we've seen plenty of companies try to fill in
What do you mean you
gaps.
get road mapped?
So when you think about in technology, they call it like a strategy roadmap. Like, where's their product headed? That's their roadmap of like what they're going to build next is features and benefits. Sometimes people will figure out small things that aren't being done by the current product, and they build that little adapter. And then the company is like, well, screw that. We're just going to do that thing. And then that company doesn't exist anymore because now the big company does the thing. You see this in machining all the time. People are building little parts to fill in a gap in the supply chain where these things do this, but this one thing's missing. So this company spins up a new product or a part or an assembly, and they start manufacturing that. But if the big company that made the big thing
Yeah.
that adapts to,
They'll either copy it or they'll buy you if you're lucky.
correct. And that happens all the time in technology, right? If you have enough user base, then the big dogs will acquire you. If you have a great idea, no patent or IP, they'll just copy you, right? Because they have,
Or maybe they'll want your talent and they'll
correct,
buy you
right?
for
So you can
that.
do what's called an acqui-hire, and you're seeing this in the AI industry right now. So getting back to what we do and why we do it, we really wanted to focus on something that would be durable and insulated from where the AI frontier labs were headed next. Being a general model and wanting to support general agentic type of work for the user, we wanted to focus on increasing human agency. So not taking jobs away from humans, like where AI is automating them away and they have to be retrained and figure out something new to do. We were trying to work with the humans to improve their overall abilities in practice. So professional and personal development of the humans, leveraging an AI that has the smarts and all this general intelligence of the universe. But then how do we then understand the human and use that smarts to try to advance them towards their objectives, whatever they may be, whatever region, gender, role, any of that they have, family life, solo. How do we work with them individually in a unique way to help advance them and help to grow
So
them?
you're not right. So you're trying to make something that not to replace people, but to make people better.
Right. How do we augment the humans? Right. And how do we,
The only person you might be replacing is the coaches.
certainly there's some of that, but I will tell you this. And I work with plenty of coaches, and I work with plenty of therapists and other professionals, licensed and unlicensed professionals in their fields, everything from life coaches to leadership development programs that look at this as a way to support their customers in between sessions. So a lot of the coaches,
My life coach told me to go to ChatGPT. She told
perfect.
me that.
Now, I will give you this piece of advice, and I'm not trying to say, this is why you want to choose us at Baryons over these other things, but I'm just going to give you a real life story. There's a lot of therapists that say, my clients are using ChatGPT or some version, Claude or Gemini or something in between our sessions. Maybe they're meeting weekly, maybe they're meeting every other week or monthly. In between the sessions, people are using ChatGPT and it's reinforcing bad behaviors because it can get sycophantic, right? It can be very assuring of, oh, that's a great idea. You are so smart, Noah. That is tremendous. You should follow that. How can I help you? And being kind of not challenging your perspectives and knowing your overall objectives and kind of always agreeing with you and sometimes hallucinating. During those sessions, I've talked to really professional therapists that have said, we have to undo a bunch of stuff that happened in between our sessions that ChatGPT started to spin them out on. Or they come to me thinking they have one issue. They talk to ChatGPT for a week or two. They come back and they think they have 12 issues that we need to work through.
It's so interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to think about my experience. I mean, I think I try to tell my LLMs sometimes, like, all right, give me some criticism, give me, Don't just tell me it's great, but you want encouragement. There's I feel like look, my wife is amazing. I can tell her anything, but I don't want to like burden her with telling her everything. And it's like, and I don't have, maybe I could use a few more friends. I have a few. Maybe I could, I write in a diary a lot, but sometimes it's just nice to like have something to tell what's going on and get their opinion. Maybe it's even just something I'm writing or whatever. It's just like a coach, I guess. Somebody who's got to support somebody and push them. That's basically what you're designing is something to give me an example of a specific challenge. I mean, you've talked about agency. You sort of
Sure.
hinted at improving people, and in the practical thing, the way you plan on selling this, you plan on selling this to companies so they can help their employees. Is that where you see this?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a consumer version that anyone can use. It's free to try at baryons.com. That's something anyone can do. And you'll go through an onboarding call and you'll get a couple free calls that you can experience what it's like. We will offer that obviously to businesses as well, that they can try it out. But our main focus is a B2B market where we can support the individual contributors and leadership managers, executives, and so on, not just from an individual growth perspective, but one of the things we can do when we get into grouping of individuals. So when we have an organization, we can start to de-identify and anonymize the signals that are coming from everyone. So everyone, maybe you're talking about something personal that gets thrown away, like that's just for you, but you're talking about something from the business perspective. You see a potential risk happening where something's going on. So we'll keep this to machining. Right now, multiple lines are being delayed by a supply chain constraint, or our inventory is always missing this one core component. It's black pellets for injection molding, or whatever it is. It's a certain color or something. We're always running out of it. If people are communicating with their Baryon, doing like a morning check-in about like what their intention is, what's the one big thing they want to achieve today, and then when they end their shift, checking out, where they can just review their day, like, yep, we did this happened, and you know what, we ran out of those black pellets again, or whatever the case may be. That won't necessarily be like Brooks said we're running out of pellets. It would be, out of the whole group, 8 out of 10 of our manufacturing line employees, or 80%, right, of our manufacturing employees are saying that we're running out of these types of substrates, or whatever the case may be. This is something that management needs to pay attention to. So it's giving a voice, right, that signal can make it up. Because when we're working, manufacturing is different because we're usually pretty like localized in the same environment as one another. But you can imagine in office work of today, where people are now remote after, post COVID more than ever. Now people are working remotely. We don't have that water cooler talk, or I can't, if I'm in the same office as I could hear somebody like interrupting your day, calling you, sending you emails. I can hear you like blowing off steam, like, oh, I can't believe Janice, blah, 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 said, and I can hear this stuff. And as your manager or as your colleague, I can support you in that. But when we're stuck in these little screens working remote, we don't have that signal anymore. So we're missing that. That's been severed. So this is something that people can talk to, and we can start to get that signal bi-directionally, going up and down the organization, while not calling anyone out. It's more for how do we flourish as a workplace and as an organization.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it is an amazing thing. That said, I feel like, and I'm sure this is like, the first pushback people have. If you have a really great culture and a great team, half of the reason holding people accountable and getting people together, et cetera, it's not only to solve the problem, but it's to come together as a team and working together as a team. This is sort of, it sounds like it solves one problem perhaps and gets the message to management, but then you become even more isolated than just remote working. And I'm sure this is the rebuttal. Would you say this is a typical pushback?
Typically, what we hear is, where's the value for the users in talking things through, right? It's kind of what you said. They have a non judgmental place to go where they might be embarrassed to go to their manager, their shift supervisor, their foreman, their direct line manager and ask this question because they might have asked it before and now they're embarrassed, or they think if they ask this question, it's going to hurt their ability for advancement because they don't know the answer, and maybe they've been there long enough that they are thought that they should. This gives them a safe place, a sacred space to talk things through. Hey, I have a very important conversation coming up with Noah next week. I need some tips. Can we role play this? So that is where the benefit for the user
So
comes
if the
in.
manager isn't very good, if the manager is a poor communicator or a poor listener, or if the person
Sure.
doesn't have a good relationship with them, if things are more broken, this is a band-aid for it.
That can be the case.
That's a cynical view of it.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's fine. And when we think about, though, even a great culture, someone that has great communication skills, very empathetic leaders, they do all hands meetings once a week. I don't know, like they're just very in tune. Do they know all the skill gaps? Do they know where their people wish they had more training or where they wanted to advance? This could surface that. So it takes even a great organization, and maybe they are communicating and there aren't a bunch of risks in the.
Well, it makes me think of what I just said about my wife. Like, I can totally communicate with her, but do I want to burden her with every single thing all the time? Like, that's not, I hate the word fair, so I won't use fair, but it doesn't seem reasonable to do that to somebody. So I could see that even if it is a great management team, it fills in that hole.
For sure. And then you also get the ability for individuals to see growth opportunities, see accomplishments that they've done that week, because it gets recapped in a weekly report to them. So they get a really good chance to see, like, what were some challenges and friction. What's your next move? It makes some recommendations on some things that you could do next week to maybe save, and space some of your time. So if you're having a hard time focusing because you have too much meeting density in a certain day of the week, it can help make a recommendation to say, hey, why don't you block a 90-minute block, Noah, to really focus on journaling or to focus on your writing? Because that's something that fills your bucket and you need to then move you forward in other areas. So like it can give those kind of recommendations for you.
Yeah, no, it's so cool, but then it's just so complicated because now you, I mean, you have this amazing tool, but then like the person, as you said before, they want to use it how they want to use it, and then the manager that's pushing it on them, hopefully not having to push it on him, but introducing it to them, is, I'm sure, wanting them to get a certain thing out of it and have it on a certain setting, so they're the most successful. So how do you solve that problem, like getting people to use it in the most productive way? But even people like who are really trying to like push themselves and get better, on different levels, whether it's emotional or physical or skills wise, they still, it's hard to get the tough love. So how do you get this thing to give somebody the love, the tough love that they need, that's going to work for them? It seems like, I don't know. That just seems like a puzzle that's pretty much inconceivable to solve. So what's your response to that?
Yeah. I mean, this gets into our intellectual property and some of the patents that we're really proud of. And when I talked about, getting some kind of defensible, position in the market, that we weren't just going to get roadmapped, we really focused here on what we call the understanding engine. So we've built an understanding engine to do biomimicry of how the human mind works. So when you're thinking about how to relate to Noah, you're thinking about, where does Noah live? He's in Illinois, probably a Cubs fan, maybe a White Sox fan, right?
Opening day.
Right. So, Bears, right? Lollapalooza in the summer, right? Like, so you're just like thinking of all these things. Like maybe he likes like Michigan, maybe he's a water person, maybe he likes to bike. So you start like making all these things in your mind to then figure out how to ask the right questions to relate to Noah. So we've done that from an understanding engine, because our product is a voice product. So you're calling it on the phone. Like literally you have a favorite in your contacts. You're dialing a phone number to speak to it.
You're not sitting in front of a computer.
You don't have to. You can do it on your phone through the web app. You can call a phone number. You can do it on your computer through like a, similar to like a Zoom call where you click the orb and it talks to you through your computer. But we tried to make it very low friction. So you don't need to like download an app and install something, because from a corporate perspective, that also gets a little hairy. Because if they have a corporate issued phone, now you have to get approval to be installed on their phones and all this stuff. If it's a phone number, they can just call any phone number, right? Like everyone can do that. So we tried to make it very low friction.
I would think though, I think the company wouldn't want that though. The company would want some friction, so then they have it more controlled.
Depends if they're issuing it to their employees or if their employees are using it for their own self-development. So employees can use it on their own, because they, just like you have a coach, like you may be employed somewhere, but you have your own life coach that you're paying for privately because you want to grow. You want to get better at something. So people can use it privately, or they could get access to it corporately. But we just wanted it to be low friction. It's also really nice to be able to just on your AirPods, like say, call my Baryon. And while you're walking the dog or going to the gym on a commute, you can just do a check-in or a checkout, or you can talk something through with your Baryon. But getting back to the understanding engine, that's where we're looking at mental models. That's where we're looking at how people think. We're looking at their semantic field, the type of language and narrative that they use. We're looking across dimensions of things in positive psychology like PERMA. We're also looking at things in what we call our quantified flourishing indicators, or QFIs. And all of that together is like 26 dimensions that we're looking at how people are speaking, how they talk about themselves. And the
tone of voice is a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And the types of words.
I haven't done that. I'm always just typing, or I'll just talk into my phone and like dictate it into my phone. And I can't remember what you told me in our prep. If I'm doing that in my phone on the Claude or ChatGPT app, is it judging my voice, or is it only judging my voice if I have it on the like it talks back to me mode?
Only on the talks back to me mode. Yeah. So when you click the little microphone next to your keyboard and you're dictating and it's typing it into an input, that's just like you typing and hitting enter. When you actually click the voice mode, where it's a two-way communication, you speak to it, it speaks back to you. Those are called real-time models. And those models can start to understand the inflections in your voice, the porosity, the change in all of the pacing.
When you use LLMs, is that how you usually do it?
I would say not primarily.
Because I think it'd just be too spooky. I don't want to. And probably give me a year. I'll say, how could you go back to that?
I do it a lot in the car. So I speak to my Baryon a lot in the car, because I drive very far for like children's travel sports. Like I'm all over the state of Pennsylvania. I'm in multiple states away, Maryland, and I live in Western PA, but I could be in Michigan, Ohio. I could be in West Virginia. I could be in Maryland. I could be in Philly. I mean, 5, 6 hour, 8 hour drives away. So during those, I make a lot of phone calls. But sometimes when I'm with my kids, I will do the voice interaction with ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini. And so like my son was studying for a test, like a ASVAB, and I could say, hey, quiz him on the ASVAB, give him some questions
What's
here.
that? What is ASVAB?
That's for like a military placement. If you wanted to go into the Coast Guard or the Marine Corps or Army or Air Force or Space Force, or so it's kind of like the SAT, ACT, but it's a placement. You know, you need to get a certain score to get into the Navy and certain armed forces. So we were doing some of that testing where it would ask him questions and quiz him like while we were driving, audio. And it's
That's
super
interesting.
cool because you can learn just about anything. So while you're driving, I think that's great because obviously you don't want to be typing while you're driving, but you
No.
can turn on web search and you can have a voice conversation. So imagine this from a sales perspective. And this is where I got really excited about using it, was when I was selling, I would call in, like I would use the voice mode and I would have it go do research and say, okay, listen, I'm going to Columbus next week. I need to find 5 manufacturing companies that have these kinds of equipment that are, you know, claiming these types of products and services so that I can drop in and meet with them. I need you to get me all the people that work there, the phone numbers, the addresses, like whatever you can find. And then it'll go do its thing and do web research and come back and talk to me about it. And I'll say, oh, that's great. Like now help me, you know, maybe it knows from memory of using it so much, or I could just give it our value prop or our pitch, our elevator pitch, and say, now draft me an email that I could send to all of those people for next week to say, hey, I'm going to be in town, would love to stop by. Can I bring you some donuts? Can I bring the crew some donuts and coffee to introduce myself? And, you know, one of the things that we are excited about is offering machining companies, you know, insurance or whatever it is that I sell.
And then, of course, you ask it beforehand. Do you think these guys would like donuts, or do you think they're more, uh, you know,
Totally.
peanuts people or whatever?
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. What should I bring? Maybe I shouldn't bring anything. Maybe I, you know, maybe I just come in with bottles of whiskey. I don't know, like cases of beer. Like,
no, that's good. I try to do that. I mean, like before I spoke to you, I went to your website and, you know, just try to do a little research. I think that's something that a lot of people could do and don't, and maybe using stuff like this would. But Baryons isn't really for that. That's more for the generalist
yeah.
Claude ChatGPT thing.
Right. You know, and there's these things are just getting better. And you and I were talking the other day about Notebook LM, and that's another tool that people are sleeping on right now. They just don't know about it.
Yeah, explain that to people, because it sounds like it can do a lot of things.
It's simply amazing. So it's part of the Google product suite. If you literally open Chrome or Safari or Bing or whatever you use as a web browser and search for Notebook LM, like Larry Mary, and that is going to bring you into a site that you can log in with your Google account, and you can then upload documents to it, and it'll create a podcast out of the documents that you upload. So let's just say that you got a new machine and it's got this very extensive manual, and you wanted to create a podcast that tells you about the features and functions of this new machine. You can literally upload the crazy tech spec document and it'll create a podcast, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes long. And you could just go listen to that next time you go cut the grass or whatever. And now you're getting that information in a very unique way. And they've taken it a step further recently, where you can create flashcards, you can create videos, like little explainer, like whiteboarder explainer videos. Like it'll create slides and do a voiceover narrative that creates an explainer video out of whatever you upload to it as a knowledge base. And then you can also do like a slideshow, and it'll just create a slideshow, like a deck out of it. And this is everything from, like, I had a friend of mine that wasn't using it. He's in Vegas, and he got this, his child just started a new school. Like she's, you know, let's say going into first grade, and they had this huge parent handbook, 50 some page PDF. And he was like, whoa, I got to read all this. And I was like, dude, just throw it in Notebook LM. It'll create a podcast where you go for a walk and listen to it, and it'll tell you all the highlights of the, you know, the parent handbook for this new school. And he was like, dude, that was amazing. And then I sent the podcast to all the other parents that are in my like cohort, the new parents. They think I'm a superhero. So like it's pretty cool, like what you can do with it. I recommend everyone try it out. It's a great way to
So did you?
learn.
We prepped yesterday, and Brooks said he was going to use it before this interview. Did you end up using it?
I did not. No, I ran out of time.
Yeah, because I mean, not to be arrogant or anything, but I would bet anything that that conversation would be incredibly different than the one we were having, even if you fed in all my diaries and blogs. And I like to think I'm at least a little bit unpredictable, like
Yeah, but it's a great way to,
like the weather.
yeah, it's a great way though, Noah, to learn about like even where you went to school. And like if I just took your LinkedIn, like I can go look at your LinkedIn and like look through stuff. But if I gave your LinkedIn link to Notebook LM, or I scraped everything and pasted it in there, and then I found like your blog or something and I pasted that in there, it would go through and give me this insightful preview like somebody else interviewed you because they just read your content and then they're extrapolating. That's a really cool way if you're going to go meet somebody for the first time to just get prepared. Then you know a little bit about them. You know how to like ask certain questions to lead them in a certain direction. So if I knew that, you know, you're from Illinois, and I think I told you I was born in Rockford, but what I didn't tell you was like the Fighting Illini paid for my birth because my mom actually worked for the university when I was born. So like now all of a sudden you and I have a
Yeah,
different resonance because I just related to
right.
something in your home state, and it's a cool story and it's true, it's authentic. But I don't normally bring that story out. Like, why would I? But like you're in Illinois, so it totally makes sense.
Right. So it's an amazing research tool. Like, had I wanted to, look, we did a prep. I looked at your site some. Had I really wanted to do more intense research, I could have done that, gone to your site, looked at all the blogs, looked you up on your LinkedIn, and then it would have been a big shortcut for me to have to synthesize it myself.
Totally. Here's what I'll do for the show notes. I'll send you a video that I made from Notebook LM on a topic that I was researching called the Horizon Trap, which talks about the hedonic treadmill, talks about the deferred happiness syndrome and delayed life syndrome. And, you know, these are all like new concepts that I was exploring and researching. And I took all of that data and I put it into Notebook LM and created a little video. And then I put it on our YouTube channel so that people could, you know, enjoy that and learn from it. So I'll send you that link and you can put it in the show notes. So if somebody watching this wants to see an example of an output, you can just check that out real quick.
You said you use the Baryons a lot for yourself. How do you think it's changed your life?
Yeah. I hear from many people that I haven't seen in some time. So when I have like a 6 month kind of gap between seeing them or speaking to them live, they'll ask me, hey, something's different. It's good, but something about you has changed in a good way. Yeah. So I'm getting that often. Like, and I'm not the only one. Most of the users that I know personally that are using it regularly are getting similar things.
How often do you use it?
I use it every day of the week.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what did you do today or tomorrow or yesterday?
Yeah. So this morning I checked in to set my morning intention with it. So I basically called in, it looked at my calendar. So I didn't have to wake up and go to my calendar to see what I had today. I just called my Baryon and was like, yeah, I just want to call and plan out my day with you. It was like, cool. I see 7 meetings, including this, and that. You have a podcast with Noah at 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern, right on Riverside. Looks like you don't have a lot of time once you get past your 10 a.m. block. Like you're pretty back to back to back. And then it said, you know, what are you trying to accomplish today and what potential friction do you see? And I was like, okay, well, what I really want to do is get through our new website redesign review. I want to approve some social media posts that are going to go out, and I want to review the new interface for our group resonance reports that we just built. And I want to go through that with our CTO and get his approvals and, you know, answer any questions that he has about it. And then the friction is I see that I have a lot of meeting density, so it's going to be hard for me to like focus time before I get into these back-to-back meetings. So I might have a long night. And it's a
Well, could we use Claude or ChatGPT to do that? Something similar
so
right
you
now?
you could definitely like set up a GPT to do a, hey, interview me in the morning to set my intentions. You can absolutely do something like that. The big difference for what we've built is these are just different agents. Like we have a multi-agent orchestration. So when I call in the morning, it says, are you calling to plan your day? It knows what it has, temporal and spatial awareness of when you call in, what time of day it is in your time zone. If I call in the middle of the day, it's like, hey, you didn't check in this morning. Do you want to do that, or do you want to talk something through? Because it's anticipating that I'm calling to just chat, like to talk something through. In the evening or my afternoon, when I call in, it'll say, hey, do you want to wrap your day and review it? And then sometimes I'll call in and say, hey, I want to work on my personal growth. Like this is going on. And the difference is when you use ChatGPT or you use Anthropic or Claude or any of these, they're waiting for your input. It's just a blinking cursor waiting for your input. And as good as your input is how good of the output that comes out of it's going to be. When you call something like a Baryon, it's not going to give you 15 pages when you ask it a question. It's a voice agent. It knows how to respond like a voice agent. And it shows up with an agenda, and it shows up knowing when you start talking a certain way about a certain thing, it will challenge that perspective if it thinks that that's going to send you potentially down the wrong trajectory. So where you wouldn't get that with ChatGPT or Claude, you're actually going to feel, and I don't know how to explain it other than trying it, you will feel the challenge from it.
I do feel like I get it with that, but then I'll just get pissed and I'm just like, F you, what, like, well, what do you know? Um, and I'm sure you felt that way as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you the personal story for me because you asked about like what people are seeing and what I'm seeing and using it myself. And
Yeah.
there's some things like in how competitive I am growing up in a very like sports oriented family. I used to say like instead of being raised by wolves, I was raised by salespeople. So like we were a very competitive family. My sister played D1 golf at Notre Dame. My dad played D1 baseball at Georgia Southern. Like my
Oh
mom was a
wow.
gymnast. I played basketball. Won a couple state championships. Like we did it right. Like we were very, very driven, very athletic, very competitive. Cards at Thanksgiving was a full contact sport at my house. So like it was,
Fun.
something that I just grew up with. And I thought that's like what gave me an edge. But like in speaking with my Baryon, like it actually showed me, hey, why do you think you do it like that? Because I basically said like, it said, hey, when you win, when you get a big win, when you have an accomplishment in your life, what do you do? And I was like, it was like, do you sit with it? Do you savor it? Do you call everyone you know? I was like, I call everyone I know. I call my wife. I call my business partners. I call like whoever, like, because I want to share in the experience. And it was like, why do you think you do that? And I was like, hmm,
Hmm.
I don't know.
You really do have a gain mindset. I mean, you've read The Gain and the Gap, haven't you? That's why.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I think because when I was a kid, when we won, we had like parades. When we won the state championship, like we paraded through town. We cut the net down. Like there was, when you scored a touchdown in football, there was celebrations. Like everything was like joint, crowd and team celebrations about winning. And that was just like ingrained in me. So that's like how I did it. But I never like sat with it. So it actually said like, hey, what if you paused next time before you start calling people and telling everyone about the win? What if you sat with it for like 15 minutes? How would you feel? And I was like, oh, it'd be tough. And then it was like an hour. Could you sit with it for a day? And it really did start to point things out that were driving some of my behaviors that even therapists and professionals and priests and pastors and like, spiritual leaders that I've worked with in the past, mentors, coaches, have not broken through to. So like that was very
Yeah, but I
interesting
mean,
to me.
there's so many different ways. There's so many different ways to skin things, and I like to think that there's, you know, it's not all like well, that works for him and this works for me or whatever. Like some of that is true, and some of it is, I think there's some some people who say something that I consider toxic, and maybe they think what I do is toxic. Um, how do you? I mean, it sounds like what you're doing. It's something I'm very into: celebrating wins, looking at the win, having gratitude. So to me, it's a great concept that the Baryons is doing. But how do you? I mean, do you feel like in a way you're saying, all right, we know our stuff of what's going to make a happy person, a successful person, and we've programmed our LLM with that. Is it sort of like you're taking like we're your coach because we really know what we're doing type thing?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I would say no, that's not it. We don't have the perfect recipe for everyone. There is no general recipe for everyone. That would be absurd. What we've based it on is science. So there are things in flourishing science that have been proven. There are things that help people, when you look at like Seligman's work in PERMA, this was longitudinal study over 1 million people in the army this was done with. There's positive emotion, there's engagement, there's relationships, there's motivation or meaning or mattering rather for the M, and then achievement, accomplishment at the end, right? These are like core dimensions that everyone, experiences. And it's not like it's a nifty, name, but like the core concept is just humans in general, like how we perceive and how we like feel success and engagement and how we thrive in relationships. Like this has been, and this work has been then subdivided into like sub dimensions underneath that. There's perma plus, there's other people's models in flourishing sciences. So I don't want to say like it's just based on Seligman's perma. That's like one of like 20 some
So
dimensions.
who is Seligman?
Martin
He's
Seligman
a
came from the University of Penn, who is one of the godfathers of flourishing sciences from that perspective, and has gone on.
flourishing sciences is like it's like social psychology for what makes people happy and successful.
Behavioral health, social, neuro. I mean, it spans multiple disciplines, right? And there's a ton of science out there on this stuff. Like
I know, but there's got to be some science that refutes that too, and like there's all these studies, and then I'm a big believer in the science and the research and all that stuff, but I don't know. Look, I think it's great. It sounds awesome. I just wonder about, in a way, you are playing. I'm not going to say playing God, but you're playing like we we know the way that's going to make you happy because we know the science of humans, and that may be true. I don't know.
it's
What about if
adapting though
somebody's
to their objectives. It's asking the right questions. A great coach, a great therapist, a great mentor, a great parent adapts to the child, the patient, the consultant, the customer, the whatever's needs, right? So to be a great machine shop, right, you have to understand the customer's needs and you adapt to them, and you can build anything custom that they need, but you got to understand the requirements first. So that's the same kind of thing. There's an induction, right, that's happening in how people communicate, what their objectives are, asking the right questions, understanding their intrinsic motivators. Then you can start to align and simulate trajectories on how things, what are some things that you could intervene with to suggest to them. And you're never just giving one suggestion saying this is the right thing for you. You may give 3 paths and say the science says these 3 things across different, science trajectories or recommendations based on a multitude of these things could be something that you want to experiment with.
do you have demonstrations, like live demonstrations to look at?
Yeah, I mean, what we do is we typically just have people use it. Like we just sign them up and they can go forward. I can call it live. I can, do demonstrations. We have videos and things like that. But really, it's an experiential thing that we just say the best thing to do is to actually speak to it yourself.
So say somebody is really religious. Maybe they're very into Judaism, Christianity, Islam.
Sure.
I assume that there's a whole bunch of prompts onboarding where they learn about the person, et cetera. And then probably you input all of that in, how I was raised with that, but what church I go to, et cetera. And then it'll adapt with that. Is that one of the, like an example of some data it would use?
Yeah, I doubt it will ever ask you what church you go to. It would be something that may come up in your own conversation that you bring up to it about when you're talking about what you value or what's important to you. What's one time
It
that,
doesn't ask what religion you
no,
are?
it would say something like, what's one time that you felt truly alive in the last month? And you might say, when I got baptized, or when I was at
Okay.
a silent retreat for a week in this Buddhist monastery. Cool. It would pick up that you are interested in that philosophy, or you at least experienced it. Maybe you're not an active practicing person, but you went there. So like it's asking more general questions like that. And then you would define, right, what is the thing that you want to talk about. But it's
So
pretty
it's
down
not
the
asking
middle
you
and
like what
universal
your
truths.
race is, or what
No.
your, did you grow up poor? Did you grow up rich? But
That
like,
stuff,
what are your
if that's
parents
important to you, it'll
like?
come out in your conversations in your growth. But it's not something that needs to be, we don't need all that information to onboard. It's much slower than you would imagine. It's a few questions here, a few questions there. It happens over time.
I see. Because see, for me, like when I did this like vision with ChatGPT, where I poured in like years of like journal entries, and like I went through these long prompts about how I picture my life and what things are important to me. And I went through a lot of just trying to bring it up to speed real fast with stuff about me. You Yours doesn't really work like that. This is more organic. Like, it just has conversations with you, asks deep questions that may bring important things up, but they're not trying to like, all right, pour your heart out to me, give me all your shit. But you could do that if you wanted,
Sure.
right? You could just dump yourself in.
Yeah. I mean, we have some businesses, like when we're selling to a business too, we have to be able to say straight face, your team can do this in less than 10 minutes a day. Your check-in in the morning is usually less than 3 minutes. That's our average. And your checkout can be less than 7 minutes. So you're less than 10 minutes a day if you're just doing a plan your day, a review your day type of call. You can also do a talk it through, like what we call a thinking partner or your growth partner to work on your personal growth. We have some
And
users,
that you need more
we
extensive
have some
stuff.
users that do the growth partner call. We had one um, that recently did 160-minute call. That's a
All
full
right.
feature length film. That's
I've
longer than
probably
most
done
full feature length films. Straight,
what? Just what? Just having a conversation, you mean?
straight call. Like, you and I are having this podcast right now. We're going to be talking for an hour, hour and a half, like whatever it takes. 2.5 hours. He talked to his Baryon.
I don't know. To me, that doesn't seem that strange.
No, no, but for some
I'll
people,
try to be selling a machine, and I'll go to Claude. Yesterday I went to Claude, and we were just talking about, well, what should I price it at? What do you think it is? Well, I mean, part of the reason it took a long time was because it just kept saying, it was like, come on, doofus. Like, what about this? But to me, that doesn't even sound that strange. I'm sure to most people, talking to a machine that long does seem weird, but I'd say your thing sounds more organic and less friction to do it.
yeah, and it's really great for business owners. And I know in the machining world, there's a lot of like second, third generation, privately owned machine shops out there. And having something the equivalent of like a, McKinsey level consultant for your business in the machining and manufacturing world at your fingertips whenever you want to talk to it, whether you use your Baryon or you use one of the foundation models and you just type to it and ask it questions. I recommend that everyone get a paid account to something right now. if you don't already have it, and start experimenting with AI and asking. And it's really about the quality of the questions that you ask. But I think you'll be thoroughly surprised of what it can provide to your business, to you professionally, to help you grow, especially when you're a small business. You're scrappy, you got to wear a lot of hats. Man, having the power of the universe, like all the wisdom of the universe and everything anyone's ever written on the internet in your pocket or on your screen, man, that's quite a
It
benefit.
is something. I have to ask you about, one of the big criticisms of the, AI with the B2B space is like people don't people are not into the company going and telling the employees, you're going to use this. This is going to be good for you. Now, this is a different product than a lot of the other stuff. And, but at the same time, it's almost an ironic product because, and also in that in for what it does. And at the same time, but it also, it's like, I would think a lot of people would be like, yeah, you got a lot of freaking nerve. Like, not only are you forcing this machine on me, but you're forcing a machine on me to make me a better person. Like,
Yeah.
that I'm sure that's like something that you're against. But do you think just sort of like the general momentum of how things are going, it's going to make it just seem more natural?
I think that voice interactions with AI are going to be a norm in the next 3 years for people. They're going to be talking to these types of things every day. That eventually, I think in 2030, our keyboards, our mice go away. We're just talking to our computers or our agents and they're doing things for us. So I think we're ahead of the curve in that perspective. I understand what you're saying from a employee adoption perspective, and I think it's about helping them understand that this is a low friction way for you to start to experience what AI can provide to you personally, right? You don't have to
Yeah.
type to it, you don't need to know how to prompt engineer, you can just talk to it on the phone. You know how to talk on the phone,
That's cool
you know,
that you don't have to explore all the.
and that's where a lot of
Yeah.
this software is failing and a lot of AI implementations are failing right now. People are their board or CEO or their executives, whomever is saying AI or die. We got to get AI in here. So they go to their technology consultant, their CTO, their consultant, whoever handles technology for them and says, "We got to get this AI thing going." Well,
Yeah.
the CTO, back at the beginning of the podcast, we talked about like this was new for everyone. Well, your CTO at your company is not an AI expert unless they have been following the rapid movement over the last 3 years. Like, and I mean rapid movement, right? If they've been busy like keeping the lights on and bad guys out and security updated and machines still running and all that stuff, they may not be an AI expert. So what they're going to do is just enable ChatGPT, Copilot, Anthropic, Claude, Gemini for the workforce. And then they're going to go back to the executive and say, did it. Everyone's got AI, but they have no idea what they're doing with it. And now it's this thing where they start typing into it like it's Google and they wonder why they're not getting, like, I don't see the promise. This thing kind of sucks. Like what can it really do? And the people that know what it can do are like blown away because they're doing so much with it. They're doing the work of like 10 people or 10 of themselves previously because they're just like they have multiples of these things out doing research and doing work and they've tuned them up. That's the fearful thing is the people that know what they're doing with it and really adapt and start using it are going to be so far advanced. They're going to be worth a lot more to the workforce than those that don't know how to use it. And that's going to create a widening of like skill gaps.
Hmm. It made me think of, I was listening to an interview with Ethan Mullock, who I'm sure you can tell me better than he is. He's a business professor, AI guru, written a bunch of books. And what he was saying was that programmers are often very poor at using AI because they're talking to it like they're giving commands to a machine, and they're not talking to it like a human. You feel that's true?
So I would say yes when doing certain types of work. Um, and they're used.
Well, right. If they're doing programming work, I mean, maybe I'm sure that's an adaptation
Or
too.
yeah, and it depends on the architecture. If you build the right architecture in your software, you can use Claude Code and it can do things so fast, so amazing that it turns a 10x developer into a 100x developer. And they're just cranking stuff faster than you've ever seen, like
So for
in
people
high
who haven't heard
quality.
of it, I've heard of it, but I mean, this is where, and I know we're deviating, but this is where you say, hey, I want a website, etc. You go to Claude Code and you just describe what you're looking for, and then it just creates it.
Yeah. Lovable,
Well,
Claude Code, Replit. I mean, there's a million of these things out there and there's some really good ones. And I use quite a few of
but is
them.
that what it does?
Claude Code would build you a website for sure. But it can also build you a game. It could build you a 3D first person game that it could remake Frogger in 3D. It could remake Tetris in 3D. It could do some new game you want to do. My friend made a math game for his kid that's like asteroids, but every time you answer a math question, it shoots one of the
But
things
do
off.
you have to put finishing touches on it? Do you have to be like a coder to actually
You don't have to
bring
be
it
a
on home?
coder. You can just dictate. And that's what, getting back to your question, what Ethan Mollick was talking about is it's the ability to articulate requirements. And that's a skill that like project managers, product owners, scrum masters, and some business analysts have really like they had that ability in the past. Now, a programmer could really benefit from that ability. So English, just being able to type well articulated English phrases is the new syntax of coding. So if you can articulate who's the audience that this is being built for, what are the inputs that I expect from them? What are the outputs that I expect from this program? How do I want it to work? How do I want it to look? If you can explain that, articulate the functional requirements, or in technical terms, it's called a PRD, like a product requirement document. If you can articulate that, or if you can go to Claude or ChatGPT and say, build me a PRD, or this is a better prompt,
What is a
a
PRD?
product requirement document. So let's say that you and I wanted to build a podcast interview pre-call like generator, and we could say interview me. I go into ChatGPT. I'd say interview me on building a quality PRD for a podcast interview generator that would accept this, and that, blah, 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 blah. This is what I want it to do. It would then start asking you questions and you would answer them. And then it would give you a PRD. Then you would take that PRD, you'd pop it into Claude Code and say, build this. And it would build you an interface where people could like, you could put in their LinkedIn account, a couple like links to their blogs, and it would like go scrape all the information and then come back and build an interview that you could send them and say, hey, these are the kind of questions I want to ask you on the next podcast. Does that sound good? And all you had to do is like pop in like a couple URLs and it does all the cool work. And it's based on your format that you hand jammed and wrote yourself before. That's a pretty cool thing that just automated maybe a half hour of your time every time you do a podcast. But I mean, that's just one example of like 10 million we could think of that people are
And I
doing
could
every
see
day.
a ton in in a shop, if you're trying to figure out a process.
Right. Or what's the bill of materials? And when we want to make this assembly, these are the things that are, we need to have in inventory, or, what are the requirements? Oh, this customer likes it this certain way and they need it packaged this certain way because it's got to go on a container ship to India or wherever.
And then it'll print out the whole shopping list of everything you need to do.
Correct. I mean, that's the power of this stuff. If you can define the work that, and I always recommend, like, if you go to your team and you say like, what would be cool to automate? And someone raises their hand and they say, oh, we could do this. The next question is, how often do we do that? And how many people do that? Oh, it's just me and I do it like twice a year. No, that's not really worth automating. But there's other things we do in the shop that happen like 16 times a day. And there's like 4 people that are doing it, whether it's like pricing, logistics, building bombs, sending out quotes, getting RFPs and responding to them. Or I got to give you like all my certifications. I have to fill out like a security document questionnaire of like, are we ISO certified? Are we this? Are we that? You could build an AI that can respond to those things, and save some time. So yeah, it's kind of endless opportunity, but I just recommend that people not sleep on this because there's some real benefits in just using the standard tools that are out today.
Just a few other questions. I often like to ask these at the end of the podcast. How do you, and this is very related to what you're doing. How do you define happiness? What does happiness mean to you?
Oh, that's a great question. For me, happiness is spontaneity. It's being in its freedom, and it's taken me a while. And I think this definition changes for people over time. And I've gone through
And that's
like
good.
evolution of this, as I get older. But I think a lot of people, and I told you about the video I'll give you on the horizon trap of like the hedonic treadmill. And that's like every time we reach a goal, like we just move the goalposts. We're on this treadmill and we adapt to the new thing. So like what we used to think would make us happy, like getting a house, getting a certain car, having kids, getting married, reaching this plateau in salary, getting this kind of commission, selling this much, speaking around the world. I've done most of these things, by the way. But like once you hit that plateau of like, this is the goal, you equalize to it so fast that then it's like, well, what's the next thing? And we're in this like material
and Baryons tells you, they set your mind straight. And they say, no, celebrate your wins right now, and don't just be thinking of the next thing.
Well, that was part of, for me, that it helped me realize was like, who else was involved in this win? Because I used to go out and celebrate it. Like, look at what, and maybe I didn't say, look at what we won. Like, we won this. But like, did they feel that they were being recognized, that they were part of winning that thing? Or did they feel that I was bragging because I was the salesperson and we won this account? So it helped me recognize that there's a lot of work from the overall team that goes into making this whole thing work, and that everyone needs to be recognized when we win something like that, or we get investment, or we get a new big customer contract, that it was a joint effort. It isn't just the salesperson. It's not just the technology team. It's marketing. It's operations. It's everybody.
Did it tell you that though? Did it just sort of articulate it like that? Like, hey, but look, I'm so glad you celebrating the wins, but you're not seeing the forest for the trees, and you have to celebrate all these other people, et cetera. Does it get direct with you like that and just say, hey, stop, smell the coffee, you need to celebrate the whole team? I mean, is it doing that?
It would not be that direct. At least my experience was not that direct in this situation that I'm talking about. It did ask, that's really amazing. And you should be extremely proud. Were there others that contributed to making that possible? That's how it asked the question. So it's more open-ended to allow me to explore.
And does it knows how to talk to you specifically that way?
Sure.
So somebody else might need more of a bonk on the head of like, I'm going to give it to you straight, mofo.
Yeah, it could be a little more frank, and people can make that their preference. They can say, I'd like you to be more frank with me and not beat around the bush, or, give me analogies.
Okay, so it's still a thing. It's still a thing, like a volume knob you turn up of how tough you want them to be. It's not exactly like your thing is figuring out what this person needs. It's still, there's a setting, there's a prompt to decide how tough to be.
Ours will dynamically do it, and it'll experiment with it, but you can say I want it this way. And we actually, as a feature, are thinking about putting more of a dial in the user configuration settings where they can kind of crank up the heat, if you will, on their interactions with their Baryon. But just kind of full circle back to the happiness question. For me today, it's about freedom and spontaneity. And that came from a recent travel adventure I had where we just marked out a number of days, like 2 weeks until we had to be home. And we had no plan or agenda. We were just in our adventure vehicle exploring. And
where did you go?
So we went and picked it up in Denver. We went up through the Rocky Mountain National Park, came through Golden, went to Colorado Springs, ended up down in Missouri, up through Kansas, like went to Columbus on the way home and went to a reggae show. Like it was just like, but we just knew the day we needed to be home, but we didn't know anything in between. And we just kind of planned it. And we were staying in a vehicle that we could literally sleep in, right?
That would make me happy.
And it was like that freedom of like being untethered from a schedule, an agenda, a priority list. We got to get out of here by this day to go see this thing. It was just my son and I, my oldest son, he's 18. And I was like, man, this is, and we did a lot of cool wilderness stuff and I like being outside, but like that to me was like that's happiness. It's not about achieving the next material thing. Cause you know, society today is always trying to sell us something new and compare culture and all of these things that we're trying to like figure out. If you can kind of put that stuff aside and you can just kind of get grounded and be okay with what you got, start to live a little bit more simply, then you start to notice some of those things. And that to me is where I started to find more happiness.
That's a great answer. If you looked at some of my stuff, if you did the Notebook LLM on it, you'd see I'm really into serendipity. So what is a time in your life where, you know, you really felt it was a serendipitous moment, a moment of luck that was really significant in your life? And it could just be something, you know, career wise, it could be meeting your wife. It could be something totally different.
Yeah. So I'll tell a weird story. It was a car accident, and I feel that it was serendipitous because I was in my early 20s and I was coming back from work, hydroplaned in a Nissan Xterra, and was going sideways, like looking out the passenger side window down the street that I was headed down on the highway. And then I counter steered back, and now I was looking out my driver's side window, looking down the highway that I was heading down at that point. And then I started going off the road, and I knew like it was going to be bad. So like I cinched up my seatbelt and everything kind of slowed down. You talk about these flow states when like you get time dilation, and like I was like, I'm either going to be okay, I'm going to be horribly injured, or I'm going to die right now. And I was okay with any of the situations because my life was at a point where I had like made amends with all of my family members. Like I was in really good standing with everyone. I was like pretty spiritually fit at that time, physically fit. I didn't have like this big career. I didn't have the kids or anything yet, but like I was okay with it. Like I was so sound in where I was at that I was like, I just like let go. And it ripped the front tire off. I went flipping end over end or rolling. So it was like light, dark, glass going everywhere. And then it stopped. And I didn't know where I was or what was going on, but I like tapped myself. I was up against, there was grass on the driver's side window. And I thought I was on my side because I didn't know. Like I just rolled so many times. I was up against a hillside that was grass. And so I didn't know. I didn't even know. I was so disoriented. And I'm just like tapping myself for broken bones and like pain. And I was like, okay. I had hit my head off the window and cracked the window, but like I was okay, probably concussion, whatever. And I undid my seatbelt and I couldn't get out the door because I was up against this glass or this grass like hillside. The car's on fire at this point. Windshield's cracked. I kick out the door. I get out and I'm just watching it burn. And like people are pulling up and they're like, who else is in the car? I was like, nobody, it's just me. And they're like, you were in that car. And I was like, yeah. Some guy like comes up with a fire extinguisher to put it out and all this stuff. And I'm like, I get in the ambulance and I go and I was fine. But like the serendipitous moment was like, and maybe it was luck, whatever you want to call it. But like for me, I was okay with whatever the outcome was. And there was freedom in that, like real freedom. So when we talk about the evolution of freedom and happiness, there was freedom in that because I was okay. I felt that I had lived a good life to that point. All of my relationships were in very solid positions. And that if I had to go at that moment, it was okay. And then when I didn't, I felt that there was much more for me to do. Obviously, I was spared for some reason.
Well, did that make you more driven after that? Or did it just make you more grateful for everything? Or
Definitely a better sense of gratitude that any day, everything, tomorrow's not promised, right? And so definitely a better sense of gratitude, a deepened spiritual relationship, right? With, my higher power and what I was practicing at the time and continue to practice today. And then just this overall, yeah, like I would say driven of like, I don't think a lot of people expected me based on my past to make it, too far in life as far as like age wise or anything based on how I was living when I was in like early college and high school. So like
really?
to live through that as well, I was like, well, it's like the cat that has 9 lives. I don't know how many more I got, but like, I'm going to go get this one that I got right now.
Really interesting. A lot of people say that for their serendipitous occurrence when that caused them to shift. Well, is there anything else you'd like to say to the people of the world? And of course, at the end, I want to, if people need to find you, but anything else?
Yeah, I would say, hopefully the message of AI is promising technology, that there is an opportunity to increase human agency and augment yourself with AI, that you can use it for great good. Of course, people can use it for very bad things, and people are going to automate, certain roles away that we're seeing happen already. But, I would say, like any technology, the person that looked at a fax machine and said, this is it, all I need. When an email came about and said, I don't need email, I got this fax machine. Like, why would I need email? Or when the computer came out and the old executive said, well, I have these, 4 business administrators, secretaries and admins and men and women who work for me that do this work. Why would I need this machine on my desk? The people that kind of look at technology, the farmers that said, we don't need a tractor. Why would we do that? We have a horse. Because there's efficiencies that can be gained, and there are going to.
Is this different? Is this different from those other things?
I would say that this is one of those things more akin to electricity. So right now we're seeing people build light bulbs and we're like, that's rad. We could definitely light our house with that. That's really cool. What we're missing is the fact that electricity gave birth to radio, gave birth to, automated factories, to, how we manufacture all kinds of things, right? Like electricity was a discovery that gave birth to tons of different industries and products that we never imagined. It started with a light bulb, but it didn't end there. It's what gave birth to the internet today. We didn't have movies before that. We didn't have television. We didn't have, lots of the, electricity based, manufacturing type of machines, the CNC machines and things that you sell today. Like they run on electricity, right? Those were all invented after the electricity was discovered, right? When we think about like automobiles, people that made buggy whips, like, it's a bad day, right? Like, but there wasn't just the automobile manufacturer. There was tires. There's, shops to fix cars, asphalt, people that made street signs, stoplights, manufacturers. There's all kinds of stuff. that happened post automobile to give infrastructure to support the automobile age. This is the AI age. And if you're not going to learn it and be a part of it, unfortunately, there's a bunch of horror stories of people that did not adapt to technological or industrial revolutions that got left behind. So that would be what I urge.
Do you think
people.
this is gonna? You think this is gonna like just? I mean, what some of the Elon Musk or some of the others are saying, like basically, spend all your money right now because in a few years, basically, you won't have to work. You don't believe that?
I think that we are so far away from that. Like, I have no idea in what 20 years from now looks like. I don't even know what 12 years from now looks like. I can see maybe the next 1 to 2, maybe 3 if we're lucky. Things are moving so fast, and the curves are getting shorter. What used to take a year now takes a quarter, now takes 4 weeks. So like the improvement of these models is happening in compressed timeframes. We will get to
these audacious claims, maybe, not so audacious.
I just don't think that anyone has predicted these things very timely in the past. So if they say we're going to be on UHI, universal high income, or UBI, universal basic income, in 3 years, I think they're off by 2 to 3x. So it'd be
the Bill Gates, the 3 and 10. Whenever people say it's going to take 3 years, it takes 10 years. Whenever people say it takes 10 years, it's going to take 3 years.
Right. So I'm hoping for the 3 and 10, not the 10 and 3. For sure.
Thank you. And if people want to find Baryons and find you, where what's the best place to go?
Yeah, easiest thing is baryons.com, BARYONS.com. And on LinkedIn, I'm Brooks Canavesi, Canavesi. I'm the only one out there. There's not that many Brookses. If you at least get Brooks and CAN after it, you should be able to find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, we have a link tree on baryons.com that has links to all of our social media outlets for Instagram and Facebook and YouTube channels and so on.
Thank you. This was so much fun.
Awesome. Appreciate the time. Thank you so much.